Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. We are going to break down Week 5 in college football, beginning with the Georgia Bulldogs, who just escaped by the skin of their teeth against the Auburn Tigers. Jordan Hare was rocking. Fantastic atmosphere. I think we both expected a little bit of a better performance from the Bulldogs. They turned the ball over some. They made some mistakes. They fell behind the 8-ball, but when push came to shove, Carson Beck needed to make some throws. He made a lot of big-time throws on the road in his first true home test. So I think if you're a Georgia fan, you have to be encouraged by that. But then you also have to be discouraged about everything else because, as I said, as we talked about, Auburn is not a fantastic football team. Now, that may have been the best version of themselves at home in a big game playing up to their opponent. Still, though, you got to think, I mean, we're now, 5 games into the season, and Georgia has yet to really look like anything close to the dominant force that they were a year ago. And they've got some big matchups coming up. We saw Kentucky really handle Florida. That is not going to be a gimme game. We obviously saw Ole Miss do what they did to LSU, put over 700 yards offense. They have to play later. We saw another big performance from Tennessee. That's going to be a big game on the road. So this schedule, and you still got Florida, this schedule that everyone was kind of thinking, oh, Georgia's just going to cakewalk by. Now you've got those 4 games coming up, and they haven't played a game as tough as any of those 4 games yet, and they haven't looked good. I mean, they barely escaped 2 losses. I do think I was impressed with Carson Beck in that second half. I'll say that. I think Carson Beck has a chance to be a really, really good quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs. Everything else, though, left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, Brock Bowers is not a human being. That guy is unreal.
We don't even have to say that. That guy's that's the best tight end, I think, in the history of college football. I mean,
he is one of the best players I have ever seen. He is amazing.
That one-handed catch he had, it got called back, but it's like that's a tight end doing that.
He does stuff that does not make sense, that our minds cannot comprehend. I just wanted to give him his roses while he's here. Georgia Bulldogs fans, because you're never going to see somebody like him again. I think the biggest concern for this Georgia team is the defense. Last week, struggling with UAB. This week, we saw Texas A&M handle this Auburn offense, and this Auburn offense moved the ball kind of at will against this Georgia Bulldogs defense that we all expected to be, one of the strengths of the team. Now it's looking like a weakness. I think Beck answered a lot of questions. That's a tough environment to play. Though he struggled to miss some throws in the first half, he responded how you would like him to. And you can, credit Brock Bowers for taking, a 15-yard pass, 40 yards for a touchdown. But Beck still had some big-time throws. Bobo still got some things to work out offensively, still doing Bobo things, running it up the gut 3 times in a row. But still, you escaped. A win is a win. Never apologize for beating a rival like that, especially on the road. I think the Georgia Bulldogs are slowly coming along, but like you said, they've still got some tough matchups. And I just think, Tennessee doesn't scare me. Florida doesn't scare me. Ole Miss could very well come in there and beat the Georgia Bulldogs. They very well can. I mean, that offense can score with anyone. So I think that's the one they got to be worried about.
You say they don't scare you, and I understand. I don't think they're anything special, but I mean, like we talked about coming into this matchup, Auburn wasn't anything special, and you still got to go to Neyland. You still got to go to Neyland, and that place is going to be rocking. And Tennessee is going to be up for that game as much as they've been up for any game of the last 2 decades. I mean, that place is going to be absolutely insane. Obviously, I'm not a big Billy Napier or a Florida guy, but we saw what they did to Tennessee, and you saw what Tennessee did to South Carolina. I know we don't want to do all these transitive properties, but those 4 teams are better than anything they've played so far this year. And if you keep playing with that fire, how many times is Carson Beck going to have the answers in this Georgia offense? Because I think he showed you a lot. I mean, he made some huge 3rd down throws where they were perfectly on time. I mean, I remember one specifically. It was a little like comeback route on, I think, 3rd and 7 in the 4th quarter when they had that big drive, and it was right on his hands. Right there. I mean, it was great. I was like, dang, this guy can play a little bit. And that was those were big time throws and big moments on the road against a defense that was playing very well, particularly in the first half. So I think you got to be excited about that. But I'm telling you, like, these games that they're coming up, I mean, Kentucky is no joke. Kentucky's no joke. I mean, that they can play some football. So Georgia's going to have to be better, or they might not be just staring one loss in the face, not just one. they could be staring a couple. And I'm not even talking about the SEC championship, if they even make it there. I don't think anything is a foregone conclusion for Georgia this year. I really don't.
I think you could say that about college football as a whole. There are, I said it last week. I said it maybe the week before. You could tell me, one of 10 teams wins a national championship, and I would buy it. I go, yeah, I guess I can see that, because nobody has separated themselves. Nobody looks like that dominant force that we've seen, 2019 LSU, the Georgia national championship teams. They didn't really have any true tests. So other than, Ohio State, but that's the playoffs. This is great for college football. I love it. The Pac-12 is the best conference in the nation by far the best conference. You got a couple of contenders in the Big Ten, Ole Miss, LSU. I know they just lost. They still control their own destiny. Bama, Georgia, Florida State. This is awesome. Great for college football.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it ad nauseum. I mean, there are 12, maybe even 15 teams that you're like, oh, that team could probably win it all. And I love what I'm seeing out of the Pac-12. But my biggest takeaway is I really think you got to give Carson Beck his flowers for that game. I think all Georgia fans should feel confident about him moving forward. And I think this offense, as we talked about at the beginning of the season, we're like, they're eventually going to start looking a lot better. And I think we're starting to see that as we get into week 5 and week 6. But as you mentioned, that defense, they're going to have to be better.
That's the biggest issue. And I saw people complaining about Beck, Bobo. Sure, the offensive line didn't look, it hasn't come as advertised. It was the best line in the country. That defense is the most worrisome facet of this football team. I mean, by far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Coming up after the break, we're going to get into the rest of the SEC. There was a lot of action this week, week 5, college football.